Chapter 661, Come here and let me kill you B0xN0VL. CM The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull and hundreds of Dark Race members fell to the ground in shock. Even in their dreams, they would never have imagined that such a scene would actually appear. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead did not have eyes. If it did, its eyes would definitely widen to the largest size in history. Its heavy sword was actually broken by the human in front of it just with a gentle twist. Are you very shocked? Yili looked at the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead indifferently. The level 9 skeleton undead was shocked and looked at Yili in horror. Actually, you don't need to be shocked at all because you're going to die soon, Yili continued. As soon as he finished speaking, the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead was terrified. It wanted to escape. It really wanted to escape. Unfortunately, how could it escape from Yili's grasp? Yili casually threw a punch at the 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead. The skeleton undead was instantly pierced through. Silence, a deadly silence. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull and several hundred Dark Race members' eyes were wide open, all of them frozen on the spot like clay sculptures. The 9th tier heavy sword-wielding undead died just like that. One had to know that this was a 9th tier skeleton undead. Yili's face was still as calm as water, as if nothing had happened at all. Human, who exactly are you? The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull glared at Yili, the person who killed you. Yili said slowly. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull and hundreds of Dark Race members all turned cold. Although the strength Yili displayed was very terrifying, their overall strength was not something these few humans in front of them could compare to. Human, don't be too arrogant. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull's expression was terrifyingly cold. He had seen many humans, and he had also seen many arrogant humans, but he had never seen anyone as arrogant as Yili, ants like you who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Even if I, Yili, am arrogant, what can you do? Yili smiled faintly. When the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull and the hundreds of Dark Race members heard this, their eyes widened in anger. Come over. Let me kill all of you. Don't ever choose to resist me, Yili said leisurely to the Dark Race members in front of him. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull flew into a rage. This was an unprecedented rage from its birth until now. Human, one admire you very much. I really admire you. You actually want to challenge our dark cave with just the few of you. Do you know that in an instant, our dark cave can crush you into pieces? Although the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull really wanted to kill Yili, he really wanted to understand what this human in front of him relied on to be so arrogant. Do you always talk so much nonsense? Yili looked indifferently at the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull. When the Red Bull heard this, it could no longer suppress the anger in its heart. Kill them all. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull roared. Following the order of the Red Bull, hundreds of Dark Race members all rushed towards Yili and his group. Tianer had never seen such a scene before. She was so frightened that she almost fell to the ground. There was still no change in Yili's handsome face. He looked indifferently at the hundreds of Dark Race members attacking him and slowly said, There's no need for me to personally kill you. Chapter 662, The Death of the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull B0xN0VL. CM As soon as he finished speaking, Hongye and Yutong flew out, leaving only an afterimage on the spot. Their speed was so fast that it was shocking. Hongye and Yutong were both Tier 1 Lord-level zombies. Destroying these hundreds of Dark Race members would be as easy as flipping their hands. Ah! In an instant, screams sounded one after another. In an instant, countless Dark Race members fell to the ground. The entire scene could only be described as tragic. Well. When the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull saw this scene, it was scared out of its wits. Its face was full of disbelief. What kind of terrifying power is this? The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull didn't know, he really didn't know. You How did you? The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull opened its eyes even wider because Yi Li had appeared in front of it. Are you scared? Yi Li looked indifferently at the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull was naturally afraid. Not only was he afraid, he was also extremely afraid. Now, do you think I, Yi Li, can kill you? Yi Li slowly asked the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull. How could a Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull dare to speak? Just now, Yi Li was still so far away from him, but in the blink of an eye, Yi Li appeared in front of him. To have such speed, he was definitely a supreme existence among human genetic warriors. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull looked at the battle situation and realized that it was already over. Hundreds of Dark Race members were almost all killed, and there was only one outcome for him, waiting for death. Thud. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull knelt in front of Yi Li with a plop. He used his hand to slap his own face forcefully. My lord, it's my fault. I shouldn't have provoked you. Please spare my life. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull naturally did not want to die. He still wanted to enjoy his life. Besides, he also knew that as long as there was life, there was hope. Yi Li's face was as calm as water, as if he did not see this Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull kneeling and begging for mercy. How can a Dark Race member like you change? Yi Li asked slowly. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull was shocked, and hurriedly said, Sir, as long as you spare my life, one will definitely be a good member of the Dark Race in the future. The Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull thought that Yi Li wanted to let him go, and a hint of surprise already appeared on its face. Unfortunately, it would never have thought that Yi Li would shake his head and slowly say, No, sparing your life won't change you. Only death will change you. When the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull heard this, it hurriedly raised its head to look at Yi Li. It discovered that Yi Li had already raised a finger, and a white spiritual light wrapped around the finger. Suddenly, his finger landed. Ali! With a blood-curdling scream, the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull disappeared from this world forever. Yi Li looked indifferently at the corpse of the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull. He shook his head slightly. In the wild, good people don't die. Bad people don't die. There's only one kind of people who do, and that's stupid people. In Yi Li's opinion, in the post-apocalyptic world, there was no substantial difference between humans and the Dark Race. There were both smart and stupid ones. Obviously, a Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull was a stupid person, which was why he died. When the Tier 1 Master Level Red Bull died, Hongye and Yutong had already killed hundreds of Dark Race members. The entire scene had already turned into a river of blood. Chapter 663, Can you take Tian'er out to see this world? B0xn0 Vel. CM Yi Li walked slowly to Hongye and Yutong. Yutong smiled at Yi Li. Brother, these Dark Race members are really trash. That's right. They are not even worth my effort. Hongye continued. Yi Li smiled calmly. He looked at Tian'er, who was not far away. At this moment, Tian'er was already scared out of her wits. She had never seen such a terrifying scene and was so scared that she could not even speak. Let's go. Yi Li said slowly. Then, the group of people headed towards the ancient village. Not long after, they arrived at the ancient village. The villagers quickly surrounded him. The village chief looked at Yi Li and said, Senior, one don't know. Before the village chief could speak, Yutong interrupted him. Grandpa village chief, the seniors are too powerful. I didn't even have time to see clearly before all the Dark Race members from the Dark Cave died, Tian'er said with lingering fear. What? When the villagers of the ancient village heard this, they were all dumbfounded. There's nothing to be surprised about. In my eyes, those Dark Race members are weaker than ants, Yi Li said calmly. When the villagers heard this, they looked at each other. Recalling the scene where Yi Li instantly killed more than 20 Dark Race members at the village entrance, they knew that Yi Li wasn't lying at all. Oh right, we're leaving, Yili said to the village chief. When the villagers of the ancient village heard this, they were all stunned. It was obvious that they did not expect Yili to suddenly say this. Senior, can you grant me a request? The village chief looked at Yili in embarrassment. What request? The village chief hesitated for a few seconds. Then, he mustered his courage and said to Yili, can you let Tian'er go out with you to see this world? That's right, senior. After all, this is a small village. Tian'er has no future here, Tian'er's grandmother also said to Yili. Yili didn't expect the villagers to think this way. He looked at Tian'er. To be honest, he quite liked this girl. However, now that he was looking for the Apocalypse Legion, it would be inappropriate to bring Tian'er along. Yili was silent for a few seconds. As the saying goes, help others until the end. He, Yili, would do a good deed. He wanted to find a good sect and send Tian'er in as the sect master's disciple. Alright. Yili agreed. When the villagers heard this, their faces were filled with pleasant surprise. Thank you, senior. All the villagers of the ancient village said. There was no change in Yili's handsome face. He had seen such gratitude countless times. Yili, Hongye, Yutong, and Tian'er came out of the ancient village. Tian'er had never been to the outside world and was very curious about everything. These places were also unfamiliar to Yili. He did not know if there were any good sects here. Yili looked at the endless wilderness in front of him. There were zombies and ferocious beasts everywhere. Currently, he was not very interested in the synthesized zombies. He just wanted to find all the zombies of the Apocalypse Legion back. He wasn't worried about Ada's safety. Aldo was a 5th-tier Lord-level zombie with unparalleled strength. He wouldn't be afraid of anything. Yili placed Hongye, Yutong, and Tian'er into the system space. He activated swift steps and began to fly up and down. Chapter 664, Zombie with Water and Fire Merciless Spear B0xN0VL. CM Yili activated the swift steps and walked for thousands of miles, arriving at a huge mountain. This mountain was filled with tombs. It was enough to make one's scalp tingle. Ali! Zombies! Zombies! Suddenly, a girl's scream entered Yili's ears. Yili looked in the direction of the voice and saw a few Tier 3 evolved beings being chased by hundreds of zombies. These zombies were not low-leveled. They were all level 10 zombies, and there were even a few mutant zombies. The leading zombie had even reached the 3rd tier. Actually, the 5 Tier 3 evolved beings who were fleeing frantically had the ability to fight. Unfortunately, they were like flowers in a greenhouse and didn't dare to fight the zombies. The 5 Tier 3 evolved beings all noticed Yili's group. Their eyes lit up. They thought that those who could appear here must be high-leveled evolved beings, so they rushed towards Yili. Senior, save us! A girl shouted at Yili. Yili ignored them as if he didn't see them at all. They had nothing to do with him. Although the 5 Tier 3 evolved beings could tell that Yili had no intention of saving them, they still ran behind Yili. Yili had seen people with thick skin, but he had never seen someone with such thick skin. He smiled faintly, thinking that this was interesting. At this moment, the 5 Tier 3 evolved beings had all run behind Yili. The zombies had already rushed over. Roar! Roar! The 5 Tier 3 evolved beings widened their eyes in shock. How is this possible? In the next second, all the 5 Tier 3 evolved beings sucked in a breath of cold air because the hundreds of zombies had turned into one. Their eyes widened for the largest time in history, and they saw a scene that could never happen. How could hundreds of zombies suddenly become one zombie? No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't figure out why this happened. They could only look at the only zombie left in front of them in a daze. But in the next second, they were even more shocked. Because the zombie in front of him was gone too. What the hell is going on? A 17 or 18-year-old girl cried out in horror. What happened? Of course, Yili wouldn't tell them that he had put the zombie into the system space. Senior, it's you. The Tier 3 evolved being girl looked at Yili carefully. Yili really did not want to have any interactions with these Tier 3 evolved beings. Leave. Yili replied slowly. What? The 5 Tier 3 evolved beings did not expect Yili to suddenly say this. They all looked at Yili in a daze. I said leave. Otherwise, you're going to die soon. Yili glanced at the 5 Tier 3 evolved beings. When the 5 Tier 3 evolved beings heard this, they were scared out of their wits and quickly fled. All. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream came from the direction where the 5 Tier 3 evolved beings fled. Yili looked over and saw a 5th tier zombie holding a water and fire merciless spear. In an instant, this zombie killed 4 Tier 3 evolved beings, leaving only the girl. Upon seeing this, Yili's face showed a playful look. The zombie with the water and fire merciless spear was none other than Long Yu, the spear-wielding zombie of the Apocalypse Legion. The girl ran back behind Yili and looked at the attacking zombies in horror. Chapter 665, I'm not afraid of being bitten by zombies B0xN0VL. CM The girl had never seen such a zombie before. He held such a terrifying spear and killed her 4 good friends in an instant. Long Yu flew over with the water and fire merciless spear in hand. He was a famous ancient general to begin with, and his armor made him look quite domineering. As the saying went, one will search high and low only to find it when one least expects to. The girl widened her eyes. She didn't understand why Yili didn't dodge at all and didn't look defensive at all. Hongye and Yutong were overjoyed. Tiana was a little curious. She didn't understand why there was such a domineering zombie. However, Long Ye's water and fire merciless spear was only a line away from Yili, but Yili still had no intention of dodging or defending. The girl had already closed her eyes. Of course, she knew what happened to Yili. Clang. Suddenly, the girl heard the sound of steel colliding. The girl didn't understand why she heard such a sound. She quickly opened her eyes, but what happened next made her collapse to the ground. The water and fire merciless spear impartially pierced Yili's body, but it did not pierce through. Well, the expression on the girl's fair face seemed to have frozen. This was the most shocking thing she had ever experienced since she was born. Yili's current defense was equivalent to the Golden Bell Shield and Iron Skin technique in martial arts novels. Then, Yili quickly reached out and placed his hand on Long Ye's neck. Long Yu was only a remnant soul now. He was just a 5th tier zombie. What Yili didn't expect was that Long Yu still wanted to resist. He threw away the water and fire merciless spear and bit Yili's hand. When the girl saw this, she was shocked. Ali. As a little girl, she naturally hadn't experienced much. When she saw Yili being bitten by a zombie, she was scared because the humans who were bitten by the zombie would undoubtedly become zombies. Tiana was no exception. She looked at Yili in shock. Senior, you were bitten by a zombie. The girl and Tiana looked at Yili and realized that there was no change in Yili's handsome face at all. It was as if nothing had happened. Yili placed Long Yu in the system space and smiled faintly. The girl was stunned. She swore she was really stunned. He could still smile after being bitten by a zombie. This. Senior, people who are bitten by zombies will also become zombies. Tiana looked at Yili in shock. Tiana, do you really think that the zombie virus can harm me? Yili looked at Tiana indifferently. Tiana and the girl were shocked. The girl looked at Yili in shock. She wondered if the man in front of her was not afraid of being bitten by zombies. Tiana, brother's ability is beyond your imagination, Yutong said as she stroked Tiana's head. Yutong and Tiana were about the same age and seemed to get along very well. Senior, thank you for saving my life. The girl swallowed her saliva and said to Yili. Yili looked indifferently at the beautiful girl in front of him. I never thought of saving you. It's just that you shamelessly hid behind me, Yili said slowly. The girl's fair face looked extremely embarrassed when she heard this. She even wanted to find a hole to hide in. Yili ignored the girl and started to use the soul summoning banner. Ding! Soul summoning banner being used, 10%. 30%. 60%. 100%. Zombie Long Yes soul has returned. As soon as the system finished speaking, Long Yes soul appeared in front of Yili. Chapter 666, Go to the Mystic Pavilion B0xN0VL. CM The girl and Tianer looked at the zombie that suddenly appeared, and it looked exactly the same as the zombie holding the water and fire merciless spear just now. How is this possible? The girl had thought that it was the most shocking moment in her life, but now she realized that not only was she wrong, but she was so completely wrong. Yili naturally ignored the girl's shock. He opened the synthesis grid in his mind and began to synthesize Long Yes 3 souls and 7 spirits. A few seconds later, the complete Long Yu appeared in front of him. Long Yu! Long Yu! Hong Ye and Yutong shouted at Long Yu in unison. Long Yu seemed to be a little stunned. Hong Ye, Yutong. Master. Long Yes pupils constricted rapidly with disbelief on his face. When Tianer and the girls saw this, they were so shocked that they took a few steps back. A zombie called Senior Master. Even if they racked their brains, they couldn't figure out why the zombie called Yili its master. Tianer, sister, don't be surprised. We're all zombies from the Apocalypse Legion, Yutong smiled at Tianer and the girl. What? The girl's eyes widened a little. She looked at Hong Ye and Yutong in a daze. She couldn't believe it. She really couldn't believe that Hong Ye and Yutong were zombies. Long Yu, where's your weapon? Yili looked at Long Yu playfully. Long Yu was stunned. He looked at his hand and realized that the water and fire merciless spear was not in his hand. He looked around and realized that the water and fire merciless spear was on the ground. He hurriedly picked it up. The girl's entire body was already drenched in cold sweat. A chill rushed from her tailbone to the top of her head. She looked at Yili in horror. You're from the dark race. Hearing the girl's question, Yili smiled calmly. He couldn't remember how long it had been since anyone called him a member of the dark race. He really missed the past. Are you from a base city? Yili looked at the girl. The girl was stunned. She didn't expect Yili to answer her like this. I am a disciple of Mystic Pavilion, the girl answered Yili in shock. Yili nodded. He had never heard of the Mystic Pavilion before. What kind of sect is the Mystic Pavilion? Yili asked the girl. The Mystic Pavilion is one of the 5 major sects in the Mystic Land, the girl replied. When Yili heard the girl's words, he secretly smiled. Since they were fated to meet, he would send Tianer to the Mystic Pavilion. Lead the way, Yili said slowly to the girl. The girl was shocked. Go, where are we going? Mystic Pavilion. Yili enunciated each word without any hesitation. As soon as these words were spoken, the girl could not help but tremble. From the bottom of her heart, she was certain that Yili was a member of the dark race because he could control zombies. However, no matter how hard she thought about it, she couldn't figure out why Yili left the Mystic Pavilion. Could it be? The girl suddenly thought of a shocking possibility, which was to occupy the Mystic Pavilion. However, this thought was immediately dispelled by the girl. After all, the Mystic Pavilion was one of the 5 major sects in the Mystic Land. Miss, what's your name? Yutong asked the girl. The girl was shocked again. My name is Yunduo. Yunduo. Sister, your name is so nice, Yutong said with a sweet smile. Yun Duo had no choice but to bring Yili and the rest to the Mystic Pavilion. The Mystic Pavilion was not far from where Yili was. In less than an hour's journey, Yili and his group arrived at the Mystic Pavilion. Chapter 667, Who Wants to Stop Me? B0xn0 Vel. CM Yili looked at the mountain in front of him. This mountain actually had some dragon and phoenix aura. Wherever there was dragon and phoenix aura, the spiritual energy was very dense. He thought that since it was one of the 5 major sects of the mystic land, he could not underestimate it. Let's go up the mountain. Yili looked at Yun Duo indifferently. Yun Duo was shocked. She had already been sure that Yili was a member of the dark race. She looked at Yili in shock. What are you going to the Mystic Pavilion for? Yun Duo mustered her courage and asked Yili. There was no change in Yili's handsome face. He looked calmly at Yun Duo and slowly said, Do I need to tell you what I want to do? When Yun Duo heard this, her entire body couldn't help but tremble because Yili really looked like a human. Tianer bit her finger and looked at Yili curiously. She didn't understand why Yili brought her here. No, it's not that, Senior. I just wanted to ask. Yun Duo stammered in panic. You don't need to know this. Let's go up the mountain. Yili looked at Yun Duo. When Yun Duo heard this, she did not dare to hesitate anymore. She hurriedly brought Yili and Tianer up the mountain. Not long after, Yili saw the door of the Mystic Pavilion. There were a few disciples at the entrance. They were all Tier 4 evolved beings. The Tier 4 evolved beings were all guarding the door, so one could imagine how strong the Mystic Pavilion was. Senior brothers, I'm an outer sect disciple of the Profound Pavilion. This is my token. As she spoke, Yun Duo handed her token as an outer sect disciple to the Tier 4 evolved beings. One of the Tier 4 evolved beings took the token from Yun Duo's hand. After looking at it, he nodded. Go on in. Yun Duo hesitated when she heard this. She turned around slightly and looked at Yili, not knowing what to do. Yili naturally knew what Yun Duo wanted to say. He and Tianer did not have tokens, but if Yili wanted to go somewhere, why would he need a token? He brought Tianer and slowly walked in front of a few Tier 4 evolved beings. Where are your tokens? A Tier 4 evolved being said to Yili and Tianer. No token. Yili shook his head slowly. The Tier 4 evolved beings were all stunned. They would never have thought that Yili would say such a thing. You're not disciples of the Mystic Pavilion? A Tier 4 evolved being looked at Yili in shock. That's right. Yili's handsome face was as calm as water. The Tier 4 evolved beings immediately understood. They thought that Yili and the little girl in front of them wanted to become disciples of the Mystic Pavilion. Unfortunately, now was not the time for Mystic Pavilion to recruit disciples. Since you don't have a token, you naturally can't enter the Mystic Pavilion, a disciple looked at Yili and said. Yili smiled calmly. What if I insist on going in? Silence, a deadly silence. The Tier 4 evolved beings were stunned. They looked Yili up and down and realized that he was too handsome. At the same time, they did not understand why there was such a handsome person in this world. Especially his eyes. They felt that they would never forget such a pair of eyes. His eyes were as serene as the night and as profound as the ocean. However, no one in this world could rely on looks to make a living. Without absolute strength, no matter how handsome he was just someone else's plaything. Thinking of this, the Tier 4 evolved beings all laughed coldly. Brat, do you know what kind of place the Mystic Pavilion is? Do you think you can barge into the Mystic Pavilion? A Tier 4 evolved being looked at Yili with extreme disdain. Chapter 668, Barged into the outer sect of the Mystic Pavilion B0xn0VL. CM Yili smiled leisurely. He looked at the Tier 4 evolved being in front of him indifferently. I thought you were pitifully stupid, but it seems like you're not that stupid. As soon as he finished speaking, the Tier 4 evolved being who spoke was sent flying. What? The remaining Tier 4 evolved beings turned pale with fright. They did not even see Yili attack. How is this possible? A Tier 4 evolved being asked in shock. Do you really want to stop me? Yili's handsome face was still as calm as water. He looked at the Tier 4 evolved beings in front of him indifferently. These Tier 4 evolved beings were undoubtedly scared out of their wits. They looked at Yili in horror. Do you know how powerful the Mystic Pavilion is? If you barge into the Mystic Pavilion, you will definitely regret it, a Tier 4 evolved being said to Yili. Yun Duo was also stunned. She had guessed that Yili came to the Mystic Pavilion to occupy the Mystic Pavilion, but this guess was later overturned by her. After all, the Mystic Pavilion was too powerful. But now, such a guess could not help but appear in her heart again. Ali. Before Yun Duo could regain her senses, she saw another Tier 4 evolved being flying backward. Her eyes were wide open. She could no longer imagine what level of dark race member Yili was. His strength was too terrifying. Yili looked indifferently at the two Tier 4 evolved beings in front of him. Do you still want to stop me? As soon as he said that, the two Tier 4 evolved beings were so frightened that they collapsed to the ground. They looked at Yili as if they had fallen into an ice cave. How could these two Tier 4 evolved beings speak a complete sentence? Let's go in, Yili said slowly to Yun and Tian'er. When Yun Duo heard this, she came back to her senses and swallowed her saliva. She knew that if she did not go in, the person in front of her would definitely kill her without hesitation. Then, Yun Duo brought Yili and Tian'er into the Mystic Pavilion. Quick! Hurry up and report it. A Tier 4 evolved being said in horror. Then, a Tier 4 evolved being quickly ran in. Yun Duo brought Yili and Tian'er into a square. There were many disciples in this square. There was no change in Yili's handsome face at all. He could even imagine with his toes that these disciples were all outer sect disciples of the Mystic Pavilion because they were all evolved beings. Senior, this is the outer sect of Mystic Pavilion. Yun Duo looked at Yili fearfully. Yun Duo was only an outer sect disciple of the Mystic Pavilion. Of course, she could only enter the outer sect of the Mystic Pavilion. Suddenly, an old man appeared in front of Yili. This old man looked to be around 60 years old, a Tier 1 transcender. Beside this elder was the Tier 4 evolved being who had been standing outside the door. Elder Du, it's them. This Tier 4 evolved being pointed at Yili and Tian'er coldly. The outer sect disciples in the square gathered around, not understanding what was going on. The old man's name was Duli, and he was the grand elder of the outer sect of the Mystic Pavilion. Duli looked at Yili and Tian'er coldly and said coldly, "Are you the ones who barged into the outer sect of the Mystic Pavilion?" As soon as these words were spoken, all the outer sect disciples in the square were dumbfounded. This was because this was the first time they had heard of someone daring to barge into the outer sect of the Mystic Pavilion. Did they eat a bear's heart or a leopard's guts? They actually dared to barge into the outer sect of the Mystic Pavilion. That little girl isn't even 10 years old, right? Moreover, she's only an awakened being. Such a person, however, I can't tell what realm this person is in. He must be very strong. Otherwise, how could he break into the outer sect of the Mystic Pavilion? The disciples in the square began to whisper among themselves. Chapter 669, Ants are Ants B0xN0VL. CM Yili looked on indifferently and smiled. However, even if we barge into the outer sect of the Mystic Pavilion, what can you do? What did you say? Duli stared at Yili. The outer sect disciples in the square were also furious. They all stared at Yili. Brat, when you said this, you should have thought of your outcome. Duli continued. Yili smiled faintly. It's a pity that one can't think of what will happen to me. Yunduo was shocked. She never expected Yili to be so fearless in front of Elder Du. Since you don't know, let me tell you. There's only one word for you, and that's death. Du Li gritted his teeth and said. Do you think you're worthy? Yili's handsome face revealed a playful expression. As soon as these words were spoken, not only Du Li, but all the outer court disciples in the square were furious to the extreme. Elder Du is the Grand Elder of the Outer Sect, a Tier 1 Transcender, a Tier 4 evolved being said coldly to Yili. As soon as he finished speaking, a smug expression immediately appeared on Du Li's old face. In his opinion, this young man in front of him would definitely pee his pants in fear after knowing who he was. He looked at Yili's face and was stunned. This was because Yili's expression did not change at all, as if nothing had happened. Du Li would never have dreamt that the young man in front of him would turn a blind eye to his identity. Seeing this, he was furious. You guys barged into the outer sect of the Mystic Pavilion. Ever since the Mystic Pavilion was established, no one has dared to barge in. Do you want to commit suicide, or do you want me to kill you? Du Li stared at Yili and Tian'er and said. Ants are just ants, Yili replied, shaking his head gently. What? The outer sect disciples in the square were stunned. They could swear that they were really stunned. Ants? This person actually dared to call Elder Du an ant? After all, Elder Du was a Tier 1 Transcender. Du Li didn't expect Yili to be so arrogant. As an outer sect elder of the Mystic Pavilion, he was respected by many people. You're seeking death. As soon as he finished speaking, Du Li stretched out a large hand. This large hand was condensed from spiritual energy and looked terrifying. However, Yili had no intention of dodging and allowed the large hand condensed from spiritual energy to attack him. Du Li looked at Yili with a cold smile. He thought that Yili was so scared that he didn't even know how to hide. Everyone in the square knew that Yili was about to die. There would be no chance of survival for him. The large hand condensed from spiritual energy was only a line away from Yili. Without a doubt, the big hand was on Yili's body. Unfortunately, there was still no change in Yili's expression. It was as if the huge hand formed by spiritual energy did not cause any harm to him. However, Yili slowly raised a finger and pointed it at the big hand condensed from spiritual energy. The huge hand condensed from spiritual energy dissipated like a bubble. How was that possible? All the outer sect disciples in the square cried out in surprise. Their eyes were wide open for the largest time in history. Well. Du Li had never encountered such a situation before. He was stunned for a moment. After all, he was the Grand Elder of the Mystic Pavilion's outer sect. As a Tier 1 Transcender, he would naturally be the first to regain his senses compared to these outer sect disciples. I didn't expect you to have some strength. Du Li looked at Yili coldly. Chapter 670, Tell your sect master to come and see me B0xN0VL. CM Du Li didn't expect his attack to be so easily neutralized by Yili. However, he was someone who had been through a lot. But that's all you've got, isn't it? You should be a body-tempering warrior, right? Du Li stared at Yili. As soon as these words were spoken, the outer sect disciples in the square instantly understood. Body-refining warriors had very strong defense. They could use any part of their bodies as a weapon. You really seem to understand. Yili smiled faintly. Du Li was stunned. He didn't understand. He really didn't understand how Yili could still be so composed even now. I don't have time to talk nonsense with an ant like you. Ask your sect master to come and see me, Yili said slowly. Yili had come to the Mystic Pavilion to make Tian'er a disciple of the sect master of the Mystic Pavilion. He thought that there should be many genetic warriors in the Mystic Pavilion whose realms were higher than his. However, he did not care. As soon as these words were spoken, Not only Dooley, but all the outer sect disciples present were stunned. How could they have expected Yi Li to be arrogant to this extent? Ask the sect master to meet him. Was this still human language? How dare you be so arrogant? Dooley roared. Yi Li sighed secretly. Stop shouting. Have pity on your lungs. Dooley had lived for more than 60 years, but he could swear that this was definitely the angriest he had ever been since he was born. Brat, one want you dead. As soon as he finished speaking, Dooley flew towards Yi Li at an astonishing speed. Yi Li looked at Dooley calmly and shook his head. He really couldn't figure out why Dooley still dared to attack him. Did he really not know who he was talking to? Yi Li slowly raised a finger and a terrifying white spiritual light wrapped around it. Suddenly, his finger landed. A terrifying white spiritual light burst out at lightning speed. When the disciples in the square saw this white spiritual light, they were all shocked. Heaven-defying level genetic warrior. Shock, absolute shock. They had only heard of heaven-defying level genetic warriors in legends. Now that they had really seen one, how could they not be shocked? Dooley looked at the incoming white spiritual light and his pupils couldn't help but constrict because he realized that he couldn't dodge this white spiritual light. Without a doubt, the white spiritual light pierced through Dooley's thigh. Ollie! What followed was a series of shocking screams. The outer sect disciples in the square were so frightened that their souls fell to the ground. Their faces were extremely pale. As for Yun Duo, she was even more frightened. Tiana was also scared out of her wits. She grabbed the corner of Yi Li's shirt tightly. At this moment, no one dared to say anything. They all looked at Yi Li in horror. Yi Li slowly walked towards the spot where Dooley had fallen. His handsome face was calm and composed. Now, can your sect master come and see me? Yi Li looked at Dooley indifferently. Daydream on. Dooley gritted his teeth and said. Yi Li smiled. He didn't expect Dooley to have some courage. Swish! With the sound of wind breaking, another bloody hole appeared on Dooley's other leg. When the outer sect disciples in the square saw this scene, they were so frightened that they collapsed to the ground. Chapter 671, Everyone in the square was terrified B0xN0VL. CM Dooley felt an unprecedented pain. He screamed violently. I'll say it again. Ask your sect master to come and see me. Don't make me say it a third time, Yi Li said slowly. You, don't even think about it. Dooley gritted his teeth and shouted coldly again. At this moment, the outer sect disciples in the square were already scared silly. How could they say anything? Yi Li secretly smiled. He didn't understand what Dooley was persevering about. It was indeed useful to persevere, but in front of him, perseverance was useless. Ollie! Suddenly, the outer sect's grand elder, Dooley, let out another shocking scream. The scream made everyone's scalps tingle. This was because there was a terrifying bloody hole on his right arm, and blood kept flowing out. What about now? Yi Li looked at Dooley indifferently. Dooley was scared. He was really scared. He had never seen a lunatic like Yi Li. All right. I'll get the sect master to come and see you. Dooley used the last bit of his strength to say to Yi Li. Yi Li thought that Dooley was quite sensible. Then, he raised his palm and a gentle white spiritual light appeared in his palm. The white light flew towards Dooley and attached to his legs and right arm. In an instant, the bloody holes on Dooley's legs and right arm disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye. How is this possible? The outer court disciples in the plaza sucked in a breath of cold air. They truly didn't dare to believe that this was real, but no matter how they rubbed their eyes, the result was the same. However, the one who was the most shocked was Dooley. At this moment, there were absolutely no words that could describe Dooley's shock. He looked at Yi Li in horror. He would rather believe that the sky was about to collapse than believe that this young man in front of him could have such a divine technique. "All right, tell your sect master to come and see me," Yili said to Dooley calmly. After saying that, Yili stopped looking at Dooley. He turned around to look at Yunduo and Tianer, only to find that Yunduo was frozen on the spot with her mouth agape as if she was frozen. Yili looked at Yunduo indifferently and said slowly, "Are you very shocked?" Yunduo came back to her senses when she heard this. She could not help but take 3 steps back. Her fair face was filled with shock. She did not know how to answer Yili. She really did not know. But at this moment, Yili continued, "Don't be shocked forever, because everything I, Yili, do will shock you for 3 days and 3 nights. Dooley had already headed to the inner sect. As for the remaining outer sect elders and disciples in the square, their faces were filled with fear. This pressure that was as deep as the sea made them unable to breathe. They swallowed their saliva and looked at Yili in horror. At this moment, Yili's hair was fluttering even though there was no wind. He was like a demon lord descending from the sky, like an evil god in the mortal world. "You don't have to look at me so fearfully. I came to the Mystic Pavilion to ask your sect master to accept Tianer as his disciple. That's all." Yili glanced at everyone in the square and said. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the square was stunned again. Ask their sect master to accept Tianer as his disciple? One had to know that the sect master never took in disciples. They naturally knew that the Tianer that Yili was talking about was the little girl beside him. However, everyone in the square knew that the person in front of them would have nowhere to go once their sect master came. As one of the 5 major sects of the Mystic Land, the Mystic Pavilion had never suffered such humiliation. Chapter 672, The 10th Elder of the Inner Sect is here B0xN0VL. CM Editor, hence everyone in the square looked at Yili in shock. The faint aura emitted from Yili's body made them feel that it was too terrifying. However, they knew that as long as the sect master arrived, this person would definitely die. He would have no chance of survival. "Who dares to cause trouble in my mystic pavilion?" A thunderous voice entered everyone's ears, and they felt their ears go deaf. Yili looked in the direction of the voice and saw an old man in the air. The old man's face was fair and handsome. When he was young, he must have been a handsome man. "It's the 10th elder." An outer sect disciple exclaimed. The 10th elder that this disciple was referring to was not an outer sect elder, but an inner sect elder. Not to mention his realm, even his status was higher than Dooley's. Yili's handsome face was as calm as water. The old man in the air was a 5th-tier transcender. He thought that this mystic pavilion wasn't that strong. It didn't look like it could compare to the Sword Sect. Is the Mystic Pavilion really one of RHE 5 major sects in the Mystic Land? Yili looked at Yunduo indifferently. As soon as these words were spoken, Yunduo couldn't help but tremble. She looked at Yili in shock. Actually, the Mystic Pavilion is only one of the 5 great sects south of the Mystic Land. The south of the Mystic Land is the weakest place in the Mystic Land. However, in order to show the strength of the Mystic Pavilion, everyone says that the Mystic Pavilion is one of the 5 great sects in RHE Mystic Land. Yunduo replied in a trembling voice. Yili understood he chose the wrong sect. However, since he was already here, he decided to just stay here. He was too lazy to change places. The 10th elder jumped down from mid-air and arrived beside Yili. 10th elder, it's him. Dooley stared at Yili. The 10th elder's name was Duan Shan. As an inner sect elder, he was not often seen by these outer sect disciples. Now they all looked at the 10th elder. The 10th elder is here. Let's see how this person can still be arrogant. That's right. He actually dares to challenge the dignity of our Mystic Pavilion alone. He really doesn't know his place. Just wait and see. This person will die before long. The outer sect disciples in Rhe Square all showed a playful smile on their faces. Yun Duo stole a glance at Yi Li. She really didn't know why Yi Li was still so calm. Even an inner sect elder was here. Was he really not afraid of death? She suddenly remembered that Yi Li was a member of the dark race. She clearly saw the zombies under Yi Li's control. Although Yi Li looked exactly like a human, no one would believe that he wasn't a member of the dark race. Yi Li naturally heard the discussions of the outer sect disciples in the square. He looked at Dooley indifferently and slowly said, "I told you to call your sect master to see me, but you called an elder over. You're disrespecting my words." As soon as these words were spoken, all the disciples in the square were furious to the extreme. Thousands of feet of anger rushed out from their heads. They originally thought that Yi Li was already arrogant enough, but now, they realized that they were completely wrong. "Young man, you're very bold. At least, I've never seen a young man as bold as you." Duan Shan, the 10th elder of the inner sect, looked at Yi Li and said, "Since you are an inner sect elder, tell your sect master to rake Tian'er in as his disciple," Yi Li said slowly. Chapter 673, Who are you to talk to me like that? B0xn0 Vel. CM. When Duan Shan heard Yi Li's words, he was so angry that his eyes widened. He glared at Yi Li. "Brat, what did you just say?" Duan Shan asked coldly. Yi Li smiled faintly, his handsome face expressionless. "I didn't expect you to be deaf apart from your mediocre strength," Yi Li said slowly. As soon as he said this, everyone present was shocked. They could not believe that Yi Li would dare to say such a thing. "Do you know who he is?" The grand elder of the outer sect, Dooley, roared at Yi Li. "No." Yi Li shook his head. Dooley shouted angrily, "He's the 10th elder of the inner sect, a 5th-tier transcender Duan Shan." After Yi Li's attack just now, Dooley was very clear that he wasn't Yi Li's match. However, the 10th elder was a 5th-tier transcender. However, what Dooley didn't expect was that Yi Li's face still didn't change at all. "An ant," Yi Li said calmly. "What?" Silence, a deadly silence. Everyone in the square widened their eyes. "Ha ha ha." 10th elder Duan Shan suddenly burst into laughter. He was laughing so hard that he could not even straighten his back. "What are you laughing at?" Yi Li looked at Duan Shan in confusion. Duan Shan looked at Yi Li coldly. "Brat, I really admire you. You clearly know that you're about to die. Why are you still so calm?" Everyone in the square looked at Yi Li. They wanted to see how Yi Li would answer. Unfortunately, they would rather believe that they were about to die than think that Yi Li would say such a thing. "Do you think an ant like you is worthy of saying such words to me, Yi Li?" Yi Li's face was full of playfulness. You. 10th elder Duan Shan was extremely furious. This was the most furious he had ever been since he was born. Yi Li had called him an ant twice in a row. As the 10th elder of the inner sect of the Mystic Pavilion, how could he tolerate it? 10th elder, stop talking nonsense with this kid. Let's attack." Dooley looked at Duan Shan and said. Duan Shan nodded and stared at Yi Li. He said coldly, "Goodbye, brat." As soon as he finished speaking, Duan Shan raised his palm and shouted at Yi Li, "Fire palm." Suddenly, a raging flame shot out from Duan Shan's palm. The flame condensed into a ferocious tiger and flew towards Yi Li. Seeing this, Yun Duo hurriedly looked at Yi Li, only to find that Yi Li's face was still as calm as water. Yun Duo had never seen someone like Yi Li. She felt that Yi Li was a devil, a great devil of the dark race. Yi Li looked at the incoming fire tiger indifferently. A sword had already appeared in his hand. How could words describe how terrifying this sword was? The sword intent soared into the sky. Everyone in the square took 3 steps back and looked at the sword in Yi Li's hand in shock. Of course, this sword was the ancient dragon abyss sword. Swish! Yili held the ancient dragon abyss sword and slashed at the fire tiger. The fire tiger instantly disappeared without a trace. How is this possible? 10th Elder Duan Shan was dumbfounded. He looked at Yili in shock. Even if he used all his strength, he would never have thought that Yili could so easily dissolve his fire palm. Duan Shan and Du Li looked at the ancient dragon abyss sword in Yili's hand again. Their eyes widened because they had never seen such a terrifying weapon. Chapter 674. Do you believe that I can cut open the sky with a sword? B0xn0 Vel. CM. Everyone in the square looked at the ancient dragon abyss sword in Yili's hand. They were terrified. What kind of sword was this? It was as if they would lose their souls with a single glance at this sword. With a second glance, they would enter the cycle of reincarnation. Regardless of their cultivation realms, they all felt the same. Yili looked at Duan Shan, the 10th elder of the inner sect. I think you have to agree now, right? If Duan Shan still didn't know that their mystic pavilion couldn't afford to offend Yili, then he was a complete idiot. Agreed, Duan Shan quickly said. Ask your sect master to come and see me. Are you willing? Yili looked at Duan Shan and continued. Yes. Duan Shan knew that he could not say no, or he would say goodbye to this world forever. At this moment, everyone in the square was frozen on the spot like clay sculptures. No one dared to say a word. Yili smiled and looked at Duan Shan indifferently. Then why are you still standing there? Aren't you going? When Duan Shan heard this, he came back to his senses. He hurriedly ran out of the square, his speed reaching the fastest speed in history. Senior, you're really amazing, Tian'er whispered to Yili. Although Tian'er had an SS-class genetic talent, she was not even 10 years old and was only a level 5 awakened being. However, she could naturally see how terrifying Yili was. As for Yun Duo, all the strength in her body seemed to have been sucked dry by something. At this moment, she was already limp on the ground. Yili ignored Yun Duo and slowly walked towards the Grand Elder of the outer sect, Du Li. When Du Li saw Yili walking towards him, he felt as if a bolt from the blue struck his head, causing him to retreat continuously. Brat! No! Senior, what do you want? The outer sect Grand Elder Du Li's voice was filled with extreme fear. He dared to swear that he had never been so afraid. Yili walked in front of Du Li. He looked at Du Li indifferently and said slowly, guess if my sword can cut open the sky. Alt? When Du Li heard this, his mouth opened so wide that even an extra-large bowl could be put into it, and it didn't close for a long time. Yili's voice was not loud, but everyone in the square heard him. Their expressions were definitely not any better than Du Li's. A sword could slash open the sky. This must be a dream. I believe you. Of course, Du Li didn't believe it, but he didn't dare to say that he didn't believe it. Yili naturally knew what Du Li and everyone in the square were thinking. Anyway, they still had to wait for their sect master to come. There was still time. Since they didn't believe him, he would show them. Yili raised the ancient dragon abyss sword, and in an instant, a true dragon occupied the sky. Terrifying sword cries kept ringing in everyone's ears. Everyone in the square held their breath and looked at Yili in shock. Although they did not believe that Yili could cut open the sky with one sword, they still wanted to see how far Yili could go. Yili said word by word without any hesitation, I have a sword that can break the sky. As soon as he finished speaking, Yili slashed at the sky with the ancient dragon abyss sword. Swish! A soaring sword beam shot out from the tip of the ancient dragon abyss sword. Everyone in the plaza looked at the sky. They found that the sword beam was soaring into the sky, and a shocking bang sounded. Boom! Chapter 675, Mystic Pavilion Sect Master, shouting B0XN0VL. CM, how is this possible? An outer sect disciple fell limply to the ground. After the shocking bang sounded, the sky split into two, looking extremely shocking. This, Dooley, who was closest to Yili, was terrified to the extreme. He certainly didn't believe Yili could cut open the sky with one strike just now. However, he didn't expect Yili to really cut open the sky with a sword. The Grand Elder of the Outer Sect looked at Yili in shock, but he realized that Yili's handsome face was still expressionless. Do you believe me now? Yili looked at Dooley indifferently. Dooley was shocked. He swallowed his saliva and said, I believe you. To be honest, if Yili wasn't here, Dooley would have cried. However, he didn't dare to cry in front of Yili. Who wants to see me? A loud shout entered everyone's ears. Before he arrived, his voice already did. A few seconds later, a man in his 50s appeared in front of Yili. The man was extremely tall and strong and his entire body was filled with power. The man was none other than the Sect Master of Mystic Pavilion, Xiao Teng. Sect Master, it's him. The 10th Elder Duan Shan said to Xiao Teng. Xiao Teng looked at Yili and then at the ancient dragon abyss sword in Yili's hand. His expression could not help but change. It was obvious that he was stunned by the ancient dragon abyss sword. Who are you? Xiao Teng stared at Yili. Yili looked at Xiao Teng indifferently. Xiao Teng was a Tier 1 chosen one. My name is Yili. You can also call me Demon King Yili, Yili slowly said to Xiao Teng. Xiao Teng was stunned. Demon King Yili. This name sounded really domineering. Yili, tell me the purpose of barging into my mystic pavilion. Xiao Teng looked at Yili. Yili smiled. Tian'er, come here. Then, Tian'er quickly walked to Yili's side. It's not too much to ask you to take in Tian'er as your disciple, right? Yili looked at Xiao Teng indifferently. Xiao Teng was stunned again. He looked at the little girl in front of him. Not only is your request too much, it's simply ridiculous. A few seconds later, Xiao Teng sneered at Yili. Everyone in the square looked at each other in bewilderment. They did not believe that the sect master would be a match for Yili because Yili's sword just now had really shocked them. Yili, this is the sect master of our mystic pavilion, a Tier 1 chosen one. 10th Elder Duan Shan looked at Yili proudly. From Duan Shan's point of view, it was impossible for Yili to be a Tier 1 chosen one. At most, he would be a 7th tier transcender. Yili, you're actually not afraid? Duan Shan looked at Yili in shock. He realized that Yili's handsome face was still as calm as ever. Yili smiled and said to Duan Shan, how would an ant like you know how high the sky is and how wide the earth is? You. 10th Elder Duan Shan flew into a rage. So, do you agree? Yili looked at Xiao Teng. Xiao Teng sneered. I just said that your request is not only overboard, but also ridiculous. So you don't understand what I mean. Swish. Suddenly, a wave of sword intent spread out rapidly. Everyone in the square was scared out of their wits by this sword intent. They looked at Yili in horror. Then they were shocked. The ancient dragon abyss sword in Yili's hand was already pressed against Xiao Teng's neck. Chapter 676, Dark Race members appeared at the foot of the mountain B0XN0VL. CM, what? Everyone in the square widened their eyes. They hurriedly blinked because they felt that they had seen wrongly. Before they could see clearly, the ancient dragon abyss sword in Yili's hand was pressed against their sect master's neck. What kind of speed was this? Do you still think my request is ridiculous? Yili looked at Xiao Teng indifferently. Xiao Teng was shocked. What kind of speed is this? Not to mention the people in the square, even he did not see how Yili attacked. You're just a Tier 1 chosen one. Why do you ask so much? Yi Li smiled calmly. Just a tier 1 chosen one. Everyone in the square was stunned again. They could swear that they were really stunned. What do you want? Xiao Ting looked at Yi Li in horror. Yi Li smiled faintly. There was no change in his handsome face. He slowly said, "Didn't I already tell you? I want you to take in Tian'er as your disciple." "Alright, one agree." Xiao Ting quickly said. Yi Li smiled again. Of course, he knew that Xiao Ting did not agree willingly. How could he sincerely teach Tian'er in this case? "I don't think you want to agree." A playful look appeared on Yi Li's face. As soon as these words were spoken, Xiao Ting's expression immediately changed. "Yes, I really want to," Xiao Ting hurriedly said. As long as Yi Li's ancient dragon abyss sword was 1 inch closer, his life would disappear from this world forever. Everyone in the square was scared out of their wits as they looked at the scene in front of them. How could they dare to speak? Yi Li slowly put down the ancient dragon abyss sword and looked at Xiao Ting playfully. "You're Tian'er's master now. You have to nurture Tian'er as the future sect master," Yi Li slowly said to Xiao Ting. Yes. Of course, Xiao Ting did not dare to refute Yi Li's words. He quickly responded. Oh no. At this moment, an extremely terrified voice entered everyone's ears. A disciple ran over with an extremely terrified expression. He looked at Grand Elder Duli in horror. "Grand Elder, there are many dark race members at the foot of the mountain." This disciple was an outer sect disciple. He naturally did not know that Xiao Ting was the sect master and only knew the Grand Elder. "What?" Duli exclaimed. Everyone in the square naturally heard this disciple's words. They all looked at each other. The dark race appeared at the foot of the mountain. Xiao Ting was also stunned. Located in the south of the Mystic Land, they never had any interactions with the dark race. Why did the dark race suddenly appear at the foot of the mountain? "Follow me down the mountain to take a look," Xiao Ting said to Duan Shan and Duli. Duan Shan and Duli nodded and followed Xiao Ting out. Yi Li scanned the area with his heavenly spirit eyes and realized that the dark race members at the foot of the mountain were very strong. He knew that Xiao Ting did not sincerely want to be Tian'er's master, so he naturally had to do something. "Tian'er, you stay here." After saying that, Yi Li activated the swift steps and disappeared on the spot. At the foot of the Mystic Pavilion Mountain, there were more than 10 dark race members. These dark race members were actually all 10th tier master level dark race members. At this moment, Xiao Ting, Duan Shan, and Duli appeared in front of them. "Our Mystic Pavilion and your Dark Mountain have always minded our own business. What are you doing here?" Xiao Ting said coldly. Chapter 677, Do You Believe in Your Eyes? B0xN0 Vel. CMA 10th tier master level dark race member laughed coldly as he stared at Xiao Ting. "Sect Master Xiao, our Dark Mountain has encountered an unprecedented existence, so we would like to ask for your help," the 10th tier master level dark race member said. Xiao Ting was stunned. He wondered if the dark race members were stupid. They actually asked the human forces for help when they were in danger. However, Xiao Ting really could not understand. The Dark Mountain was a super powerful faction south of the Mystic Land. What super powerful existence could force them to such a state? "Let's go back. Our Mystic Pavilion won't help you," Xiao Ting said as he glanced at the dozen or so 10th tier master level dark race members in front of him. "Sect Master Xiao, don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Our Mountain Lord said that if your Mystic Pavilion doesn't help us, we will destroy your Mystic Pavilion," a 10th tier master level dark race member said coldly. A master level dark race was equivalent to a transcender, and a 10th tier master level dark race was naturally equivalent to a top existence of the dark race. Xiao Teng was a Tier 1 chosen one, and his cultivation realm was higher than theirs. However, facing more than 10 10th tier master-level dark race members, he was also somewhat powerless. As for Duan Shan and Du Li, their cultivation levels were even lower. Are you threatening me? Xiao Teng stared at the dark race members in front of him. He had been threatened twice since he was born. The first time was just now, and the other time was now. Sect Master Xiao, I think you have to understand one thing. Our Mountain Master asked your Mystic Pavilion to help only to let your Mystic Pavilion take the lead. Compared to being destroyed, it should be better to be cannon fodder, a 10th tier master-level dark race member said with a disdainful smile. As soon as these words were spoken, the dozen or so master-level dark race members all laughed. At this moment, Yili was in a dark corner, watching this scene calmly with an indifferent expression. Xiao Teng stared at these dark race members. For a moment, he felt very helpless. Sect Master Xiao, do you agree or not? A 10th tier master-level dark race member asked Xiao Teng. He won't say yes. A sudden voice entered the ears of the dark race members. The 10 or so 10th tier master-level dark race members were all stunned. They hurriedly looked in the direction of the voice and saw a handsome young man walking over slowly. For some reason, Xiao Teng, Duan Shan, and Du Li heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that it was Yi Li who came. Human, who are you? A 10th tier master-level dark race member looked at Yi Li and asked. Yi Li smiled. I'm just the person who will kill you. As soon as these words were spoken, the dozen or so master-level dark race members were all stunned. Human, what did you say? The dozen or so dark race members glared at Yi Li. They had never seen such an arrogant human before. But before I kill you, I, Yi Li, want to give you a chance. Just disappear within a second, Yi Li said slowly. Ha ha ha. The dozen or so 10th tier master-level dark race members all laughed loudly, as if they had never heard such a funny joke. Human, do you know that this is the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life? A master-level dark race member looked at Yi Li and said with a smile. Yi Li smiled lightly. His handsome face was very calm. Do you really believe in your eyes? What? The dark race members didn't understand what Yi Li meant. Don't ever believe your own eyes, because your eyes can deceive you, Yi Li said calmly. Chapter 678, Dark Mountain B0XN0VL. CM more than 10 10th tier master-level dark race members all stared at Yi Li. Human, from what you're saying, you're going to stand up for Mystic Pavilion? Yi Li smiled faintly. There was no change in his handsome face. He slowly said, I told you just now that it'll give you a second to disappear, but it seems like you don't want to disappear now. As soon as these words were spoken, the dozen or so dark race members were all infuriated. Human, I think you're courting death, a 10th tier master-level dark race member roared. Unfortunately, as soon as this 10th tier master-level dark race member finished speaking, he melted into nothingness. He could no longer leave any traces of this wonderful world. How is this possible? The 10 or so 10th tier master-level dark race members were all greatly shocked. No matter what, they couldn't believe this was real. A 10th tier master-level dark race member had disappeared just like that. Human, you did this. A master-level dark race member looked at Yi Li in disbelief. They didn't see how Yi Li attacked at all. None of them saw it. An evil smile suddenly appeared on Yi Li's face. Air. In an instant, more than 10 10th tier master-level dark race members all started screaming. Their screams were so shrill that it really made one's scalp tingle. Xiao Teng, Duan Shan, and Du Li looked at the scene in front of them in shock. They could no longer imagine how terrifying Yi Li was. This was too terrifying. In just an instant, more than 10 master-level dark race members died. Even in death, they couldn't believe that they had died so easily. I heard them say that they are from Dark Mountain. What kind of place is Dark Mountain? Yili turned to look at Xiaoteng. Xiaoteng came back to his senses when he heard this. He hurriedly looked at Yili and said, Senior, the Dark Mountain is the largest force of the Dark Race in the south of the Mystic Land. Yili nodded. Then where is the Dark Mountain? Xiaoteng didn't dare to hide anything. He quickly told Yili the location of the Dark Mountain. Yili was stunned. Wasn't Ada there? Could it be? Yili suddenly thought of a possibility. That was, the super-powerful existence that those 10th-tier master-level Dark Race members mentioned was Ada. Thinking of this, Yili couldn't help but show a playful smile. By the way, I'll leave Tian'er to you. And that Yun duo. With that, Yili activated swift steps and disappeared from the spot, leaving Xiaoteng and the others stunned on the spot. After a long time, Xiaoteng, Duan Shan, and Duli finally came back to their senses. If they were still unconvinced by Yili in the square earlier, they were truly convinced now. More than 10 10th-tier master-level Dark Race members were instantly killed. What could they not accept? Most importantly, Yili had saved their mystic pavilion. After knowing the location of the Dark Mountain, Yili headed towards the Dark Mountain. Brother, where are we going now? Yutong looked at Yili in confusion. To find Erda, Yili said slowly. As soon as he said that, Hongye, Yutong, and Long Yu became very happy. Ada was the captain of their Apocalypse Legion and the strongest zombie, a 5th-tier Lord-level zombie. Yili brought the Apocalypse Legion to a ruined city. Behind the city was a black mountain with an extremely oppressive aura. The mountain was the strongest force south of the Dark Race's mystic land, the Dark Mountain. As for this city, it must have been a long time since someone was here, but there were quite a few zombies here. Chapter 679 I can kill you with my eyes. B0xn0 VL. CM Yili looked at the zombies in front of him indifferently. These zombies were too weak and pitiful in front of him. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, hundreds of zombies rushed towards Yili's group. In this situation, there was no need for Yili to do anything. When hundreds of zombies rushed over, Long Yu had already rushed out with the water and fire merciless spear in his hand. Long Yu was a tier 1 Lord-level zombie. These few hundred zombies were simply a joke in front of him. In an instant, these few hundred zombies fell to the ground. Yili opened the synthesis grid in his mind and synthesized all the zombies. Let's go up the mountain, Yili said slowly. Then, Yili and his group headed towards the Dark Mountain. The Dark Mountain was a black mountain. It looked extremely oppressive. When Yili and his group arrived at the Dark Mountain, they were immediately surrounded by dozens of Dark Race members. These Dark Race members' levels were not high. They all stared at Yili coldly. Who are you? How dare you come to the Dark Mountain? Do you want to die? A 7th-tier Dark Race member looked at Yili coldly. Yili smiled faintly, his handsome face expressionless. How can a Dark Race member like you change? Yili asked slowly. Change? The Dark Race members surrounding Yili and his group all laughed coldly when they heard this. You should think about how you can change after you die, the 7th-tier Dark Race member said proudly. In the eyes of dozens of Dark Race members, Yili, Hongye, Yutong, and Long Yu were all dead. There was no possibility of survival for them. Do you believe that one can kill you with my eyes? Yili glanced at the dozens of Dark Race members in front of him and said. Ha ha ha. When the dozens of Dark Race members surrounding Yili heard Yili's words, they all laughed out loud as if they had never heard such a funny joke before. Kill all of us with your eyes? The 7th-tier Dark Race member laughed so hard that he couldn't even straighten his back. He dared to swear that this was the funniest joke he had ever heard since he was born. You don't believe me? Yili looked indifferently at the 7th-tier Dark Race member who spoke. Human, what kind of place do you think the Dark Mountain is? It's the strongest force of the dark race in the south of the Mystic Land. Killed us all with your eyes? What a braggart. The 7th-tier dark race member looked at Yi Li with extreme disdain. Yi Li shook his head slightly. He looked at the 7th-tier dark race member and said calmly, "Do you believe that one can let you see their corpses in 1 second?" He was naturally referring to the dozens of dark race members surrounding him. Human, at this point, what else do you have to be arrogant about? The 7th-tier dark race member shouted angrily. If Yi Li was joking just now, then Yi Li was now extremely arrogant. Yi Li sighed to himself. Since this 7th-tier dark race didn't believe him, he could only prove it with his actions. Then, Yi Li activated the heavenly spirit eyes. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Dozens of white spiritual light attacks flew out from Yi Li's eyes. The dozens of dark race members surrounding Yi Li's group widened their eyes. They would never have thought that Yi Li would be able to launch such an attack. Alt. Instantly, screams began to ring incessantly. Chapter 680, They Were All Zombies B0xN0VL. CM The dozens of dark race members surrounding Yi Li's group were instantly finished. Yi Li's expression was calm. One could imagine how weak these dark race members were in front of him and the Apocalypse Legion. Then, Yi Li slowly walked forward, followed by the Apocalypse Legion. In the Great Hall of the Dark Mountain, a 5th-tier dark race member ran in terror. The expression on his face was one of extreme fear. Mountain Master, something bad has happened. In the main hall of the Dark Mountain, the Mountain Master of the Dark Mountain sat on the throne above. The Dark Mountain Master was a Tier 2 Lord-level dark race member. What is it? The Mountain Master asked. A few humans came to the foot of the Dark Mountain and killed many of our brothers. They have already come up the mountain. The 5th-tier dark race member hurriedly replied. What? When the Mountain Master heard this, he was instantly enraged. How dare a human barge into his dignified Dark Mountain? Wasn't it no different from courting death? Suddenly, the Mountain Master disappeared. Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion arrived at the plaza of the Dark Mountain. At this moment, there were almost 1,000 dark race members of different levels surrounding them. These dark race members all looked strange. There were even many crabs that walked sideways. Then, the Mountain Master of the Dark Mountain appeared in front of Yi Li. The Mountain Master stared at Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion. No human had ever dared to break into his Dark Mountain, so how could he not be angry? Humans, I really can't imagine how many bear hearts and leopard guts you have eaten. The Mountain Master looked at Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion in confusion. In his opinion, there was no other explanation for Yi Li and the Apocalypse Legion to barge into the Dark Mountain except courting death. Humans? Yi Li smiled and continued, Are you calling me? The Dark Mountain Master was stunned and did not understand what Yi Li meant. He then looked at Yi Li coldly. I'm not only calling you, but also the 3 humans beside you. Hongye, Yutong, and Long Yes auras had already been concealed by Yi Li. The dark race members of the Dark Mountain naturally didn't know that they were zombies. Yi Li smiled calmly. Actually, they are not humans. What? Thousands of dark race members were all shocked. Not human. They really couldn't imagine what else the Apocalypse Legion could be other than humans. Human, stop trying to be mysterious. Tell me, what else can they be other than humans? The Mountain Master looked at Yi Li mockingly. Yi Li looked at the sun in the sky. A few seconds later, he slowly said, They are zombies. How was that possible? Shocked, the most shocked in history. Thousands of dark race members looked at the Apocalypse Legion in shock. They really couldn't believe that the Apocalypse Legion members were zombies. Human, do you think him a fool? The Dark Mountain Master looked at Yi Li unhappily. Yi Li shook his head slightly. He wondered why no one believed the truth these days. They don't believe that you're zombies, so show them what you've got, Yili said to the Apocalypse Legion. As the saying went, a wise head made a close mouth. With Yi Li's order, Hongye, Yutong, and Long Yu all disappeared from where they were at the fastest speed in history. In an instant, the entire situation began to turn gruesome. Thousands of dark race members fell to the ground continuously. The suppression of numbers was useless under absolute strength. Chapter 681, When Did I Ever Say I'd Spare You? Please continue reading on X0VL. This, the Dark Mountain Master turned pale with fright. His face was filled with fear. Hongye used the Heaven-grade skill Sky Burning Cold Chi, Yutong used the Heaven-grade skill Great Sky Petrification, and Long Yu used the Heaven-grade skill Startling Spear Technique. How could thousands of dark race members withstand such an attack? In just a few minutes, thousands of dark race members had all died at the hands of the Apocalypse Legion. The Mountain Master collapsed to the ground. He had never seen such a terrifying scene since he was born. Yi Li slowly walked towards the Dark Mountain Master. The Dark Mountain Master looked at Yi Li in horror. He felt an unprecedented sense of oppression. "You, don't come over." The Dark Mountain Master shouted at Yi Li in fear. "Air!" The Dark Mountain Master shouted. He shivered and peed his pants. However, Yi Li did not attack the Dark Mountain Master. He was simply scared to this extent. Yi Li wanted to laugh. He really wanted to laugh. The leader of the Dark Mountain was too useless. He actually peed his pants. Who could he reason with? Did your Dark Mountain meet a super strong existence? Yi Li looked at the Mountain Master and asked calmly. The Dark Mountain Master was stunned. He didn't expect Yi Li to say such a thing. "You, how did you know?" The Mountain Master said in shock. Yi Li smiled. "Of course it's the dark race members from your Dark Mountain. There seem to be more than 10 10th tier master-level dark race members." As soon as these words were spoken, the Mountain Master's expression changed. More than 10 10th tier master-level dark race members. They were all generals of the Dark Mountain. How are they? The Mountain Master looked at Yi Li tentatively. Of course, Yi Li knew who he was referring to. He smiled leisurely. What else? Of course they're dead. What ending could they have other than dying? When the Mountain Master heard this, he was scared out of his wits. You haven't answered my question. Yi Li looked at the Mountain Master indifferently. The Mountain Master looked at Yi Li in shock. If I answer, can you spare my life? Answer me first. Don't make me repeat myself a third time, Yi Li said slowly. The Dark Mountain Master knew that if he did not answer, he would die immediately because he knew that what Yi Li said was not empty words. Our Dark Mountain has indeed encountered an unprecedented existence. It's also a zombie. It's too terrifying. I'll never forget how terrifying that zombie is. Yi Li smiled and said to the Mountain Master, Is that zombie wearing a red cloak and silver boxing gloves? You, how did you know? The Mountain Master looked at Yi Li in shock. Yi Li smiled faintly. There was no change in his handsome face. Because he's also a zombie under my command, Yi Li said innocently. What? Hearing this, the Mountain Master finally knew what kind of existence he had provoked. He finally knew. My lord, I have said what I wanted to say. Please spare my life. The Mountain Master did not want to take revenge at this moment. He only wanted to survive. As long as Yi Li could spare his life, he would kowtow 180 times. When did I say that I would spare you? Yi Li smiled calmly. As soon as these words were spoken, the Mountain Master's pupils rapidly constricted. You said so, my lord. No, I never said that. As soon as he finished speaking, a shrill scream sounded from the plaza of the Dark Mountain. Chapter 682, by Wawa. Please continue reading on X0VL. Yili thought that Ada was nearby, so he let Alta come over first. Immediately, Yili used his mind to summon Alta roar. Not long after, they heard a roar and Ada appeared in front of Yili. Master. Ada called out to Yili. Then, Alta greeted the Apocalypse Legion. Master, I found traces of Wawa. Ada suddenly said to Yili, oh. A playful expression appeared on Yili's face. I just found out too. I was about to use telepathy to tell you, but I didn't expect you to bring me over with telepathy first, Ada said, looking at Yili. Telepathy was a way for Yili to communicate with the Apocalypse Legion. No matter how far away they were, they could communicate with telepathy. Wawa is now a zombie lord. He's attacking a base city, Ada continued. Yili was stunned. A zombie lord? Then, he understood. That Wawa Ada saw should be one of Wawa's 3 souls. He thought that Wawa was doing well. He actually led zombies to attack a base city. That was really bold. Alta, bring us there, Yili said to Alda. Ada nodded. Then, Yili and the Apocalypse Legion headed in the same direction. An hour later, Yili saw a base city being attacked by zombies. The soldiers of the base city tried their best to attack the zombies with laser cannons, but there were too many zombies, more than 10,000 of them. Boom! Violent explosions sounded non-stop. Master, Wawa is there. Yutong pointed in a direction. Naturally, Yili also saw Wawa. Including Wawa, now he had found 4 zombies. Let's go over. Then, Yili and the Apocalypse Legion disappeared on the spot. Roar! Roar! Those fearless zombies frantically piled up on the city wall. The outer wall of the base city seemed to be in danger. You know what to do. Beto. The Apocalypse Legion responded and began to attack. Everyone on the city wall outside West Base City was stunned when they saw this scene. What's going on? They saw the huge zombie crowd falling to the ground one after another, and a few figures began to appear in their eyes. Could it be that a supreme powerhouse has come to help us? A 10th tier evolved being exclaimed in shock. Yili went to Wawa's side and looked at his fat body casually. Wawa was less than 5 feet tall, but he was wide and fat, weighing at least about 200 pounds. A human. Wawa glared at Yili. You should call me master, Yili said calmly. Wawa smiled coldly. Master? I'm afraid you're thinking too much. Yili shook his head slightly and reached out a big hand. Wawa looked at Yili mockingly and was prepared to dodge Yili's attack. However, he did not expect that he could not dodge it. Just like that, Yili grabbed Wawa. Wawa started to struggle, but he couldn't break free no matter how hard he tried. Yili put Wawa into the system space. Then, he opened the synthesis grid in his mind and began to synthesize zombies in batch. He turned all the zombies into female zombies. Hongye has been upgraded to a Tier 2 Lord-level zombie. Yili looked satisfied as he started to use the soul summoning banner. Chapter 683, West Base City. Please continue reading on X0VL. A few seconds later, Wawa's 3 souls and 7 spirits appeared in front of Yili. Yili synthesized Wawa's 3 souls and 7 spirits, and the full body of Wawa, the Tier 1 Lord-level iron-legged zombie, appeared. Master. Wawa was stunned at first, but then he began to rejoice. Other members of the Apocalypse Legion and Wawa were warmly chatting with each other, all looking quite happy. The genetic warriors and soldiers on the city wall outside of West Base City were frozen like clay sculptures. Their eyes were wide open for the largest time in history, and their mouths were so wide open that they could contain an extra-large bowl. For them, his actions were like supporting a collapsing building. Are you shocked? Suddenly, a faint voice sounded from the outer city wall. What? The genetic warriors and soldiers on the outer city wall all looked in the direction of the voice. Then they were scared out of their wits. It was because they saw Yi Li. They clearly remembered that Yi Li was still under the city wall a second ago, but now, he actually appeared in front of them. The genetic warriors and the army could no longer imagine how high Yi Li's realm was. They really could not imagine it. Senior, thank you for saving West Bay City. An old man who was a 10th tier evolved being was the first to come back to his senses. He looked at Yi Li gratefully. It's all right. It's just convenient, Yi Li said slowly. The genetic warriors and the army were shocked when they heard this. Was this how a supreme existence spoke? Killing so many zombies was just convenient for him. For some reason, they suddenly felt that Yi Li was like a mountain that they couldn't reach. Yi Li ignored the genetic warriors and the army. He activated his swift steps and disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already on the streets of West Bay City. Every time he came to the Bay City, he would choose to have a big meal. This was Yi Li's usual style. Then, he used the heavenly spirit eyes to find a good restaurant. Yi Li slowly walked towards the restaurant. The exterior of this restaurant was indeed not bad, and the dishes inside were also very good. There were birds in the sky, wild geese in the clouds, and cows and sheep on the ground. It could be said that everything was available. After ordering a large table of dishes, Yi Li started to sweep the dishes on the table. In an instant, Yi Li finished all the dishes. Just as he was about to pay the bill and leave, a very embarrassed voice entered his ears. Sir, can you lend me some money? I forgot my wallet. Yi Li looked in the direction of the voice and realized that it was a very beautiful girl. This girl was actually a Tier 5 evolved being. For a Tier 5 evolved being to be able to say such words, it seemed like she had high moral standards. Sure, Yi Li said slowly. The girl looked at Yi Li gratefully. Thank you, sir. Yi Li didn't care about money because he had so much money that he didn't know how to spend it. Moreover, there weren't many places in this world where money could be used. Then, after Yi Li paid for the girl, he walked out of the restaurant. Sir, wait for me. The girl stopped Yi Li and followed him. What is it? Yi Li stopped in his tracks and looked at the girl indifferently. Sir, can you come with me to my house and let me return the money to you? The girl said in embarrassment. Of course, Yi Li knew why the girl in front of him was embarrassed. Other than being shy, there was another reason. It was because of his handsome face. Chapter 684, Do you care much about your looks? Please continue reading on X0VL. Yi Li looked at the girl in front of him indifferently and said slowly, Do I look like someone who lacks money? The girl was stunned. She obviously didn't expect Yi Li to say such a thing. Sir, don't misunderstand. I just want to return the money to you. The girl looked at Yi Li in embarrassment. There's no need to return the money. Yi Li, don't lack money at all. Money is just a number to me. Yi Li said lightly. The girl looked at Yi Li curiously. She knew very well that there was no Yi Li in the big families in West Bay City. And she couldn't see any spiritual energy fluctuations on Yi Li's body. She thought that Yi Li was just an ordinary person. Yo, Xia Zhu, who is this handsome guy? Is he your boyfriend? A sharp female voice entered Yi Li's ears. Immediately, a few 17 or 18-year-old girls appeared before Yi Li's eyes. The girl in the lead was also a Tier 5 evolved being like Xia Zhu. Lu Luo. Xia Zhu stared at the girl who spoke and could not help but frown. Handsome, you're really amazing. You actually managed to win Miss Xia's heart. Lu Luo looked at Yi Li with deep mockery in her eyes. Yi Li secretly shook his head and couldn't help but sigh. Why did the wind not stop when the tree wanted to calm down? Leave. Yili looked at Luluo indifferently. Luluo was stunned. She didn't expect Yili to dare to speak to him like this. How dare an ordinary person like you ask me to leave? Luluo gritted her teeth and stared at Yili. Yili smiled and looked at Luluo calmly. I'll say it again. Leave. Don't make me say it a third time. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to Sister Lu like that? That's right. He's just a pretty boy. He really doesn't know his place. Do you know that Sister Lu only needs one finger to make you disappear from this world? The girls around Luluo started to mock Yili. Yili shook his head. He really did not understand why there were always such ants who wanted to find trouble with him. Girls like you should care a lot about your looks, right? Yili glanced at the girls in front of him. Of course, a girl said proudly, as if she was very confident in her appearance. Yili slowly said, in that case, from now on, you don't have to care about your looks. As soon as he finished speaking, the girls instantly became unrecognizable. Xiaoling, Ah Zhen, you guys, Luluo looked at the girls in horror. The girls did not know what was going on and looked at Luluo in confusion. Your faces. Luluo did not dare to continue watching. When the girls heard this, they took out the mirrors they carried with them and took a look. Oh, no. Air. Instantly, a few screams could be heard. The passers-by were all attracted over. They looked at the girls and then were all shocked. Ghosts. The girls fainted on the ground. There was no change in Yili's handsome face at all. It was as if nothing had happened. However, Xia Zhu and Luluo looked at Yili in extreme fear. Don't ever be shocked. Everything I, Yili, do will shock you for 3 days and 3 nights, Yili said slowly to Xia Zhu and Luluo. Chapter 685. Everyone in the Xia family was shocked. Xia Zhu and Luluo were shocked and looked at Yili in a daze. Did you do that to their faces? A few seconds later, Luluo stared at Yili. Looks like you're not too stupid. Yili looked at Luluo indifferently. Luluo was shocked. She really didn't expect Yili to say such a thing. She gritted her teeth and stared at Yili. Their families are all famous in West Bay City. How dare you do this to them? The onlookers all looked at Yili in shock. They thought that this person must have eaten a bear's heart or a leopard's gall to pour acid on these girls. Do you want to become like them? Yili looked at Luluo. Luluo's expression changed when she heard this. You. Yili ignored Luluo and looked at Xia Zhu. Didn't you ask me to go to your house to get the money? Then let's go. Xia Zhu hurriedly nodded and brought Yili to the Xia family. The news of the zombies attacking West Bay City hadn't spread yet. The outer city wall was still quite far from the main city. The residents of West Bay City didn't know that the zombies had attacked West Bay City, so they naturally didn't know that Yili was their savior. When Yili and Xia Zhu arrived outside the Xia family's house, the disciples guarding the door looked at Yili. They were all stunned. Well. Their eyes were wide open because they had seen Yili on the outer wall when the zombies attacked the base city. Xia Zhu did not understand why they were so shocked. What is wrong with you? How could these disciples of the Xia family be able to say a complete sentence? Their faces were as shocked as they could be. They had seen the scene of Yili saving the entire base city. Xiao Zhu, you're back. At this moment, a middle-aged man walked out. Third uncle. Xia Zhu called out to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man nodded and a smile appeared on his face. However, this smile froze because he saw Yili. You, the middle-aged man started stuttering. Just like the other disciples of the Xia family, he couldn't utter a complete sentence. Third uncle, what's wrong? Xia Zhu was very puzzled. She did not understand why they were all so strange. I think they are doing this because of me. Don't waste time. Just give me the money. Yili looked at Xia Zhu indifferently. Xia Zhu was stunned and looked at Yili in shock. Just as she was about to go in and get the money, an old man walked out. This old man was a 10th-tier evolved being. Say. Senior. The old man's eyes instantly widened. The old man's name was Xia He, and he was the head of the Xia family. Xia Zhu looked at the shocked expression on her grandfather's face. She could not help but rub her head, puzzled. Who is Grandpa calling senior? Xia Zhu did not know. She really did not know. The head of the Xia family, Xia He, came back to his senses and quickly walked to Yili. He bowed deeply to Yili. Senior, I didn't expect to see you here. If it weren't for you, West Bay City might have been finished, Xia He said respectfully to Yili. Yili's handsome face didn't change at all. He slowly said to Xia He, there's nothing to say. I was just doing it casually. Xia Zhu looked at her grandfather and Yili in confusion. She had no idea what was going on. Chapter 686, Lu Luo disfigured Xia He did not expect Yili to appear in front of him. He clearly remembered how terrifying Yili was on the city wall outside the West Base City. Grandpa, third uncle, do you know him? Xia Zhu seemed to have finally understood something and asked Xia He. Xiao Zhu, he's our savior. Alt? Xia Zhu was stunned. Obviously, she didn't expect her grandfather to say such words. She didn't understand. She really didn't understand why Yili became the savior of the West Base City. Before she could ask, Lu Luo's voice entered her ears. He's the one who disfigured their faces, Lu Luo pointed at Yili and said. Lu Luo had already appeared in front of Yili with a large group of genetic warriors. These genetic warriors were undoubtedly the families of the girls who had been disfigured by Yili. When the dozens of genetic warriors saw Yili, they were scared out of their wits. Lu Luo was stunned. She looked at the frightened expressions of the dozens of genetic warriors and was puzzled. What is wrong with you? Lu Luo asked as he looked at the dozens of genetic warriors. However, how could the dozens of genetic warriors still say a complete sentence? They looked at Yili in horror. As senior, the dozens of genetic warriors began to feel extremely regretful. They wanted to cry. They really wanted to cry. Yili looked at Lu Luo indifferently. Why didn't you cherish the chance I gave you? Lu Luo's expression changed when he heard this. Before she could say anything, the dozens of genetic warriors beside her were shocked again. Miss Lu, your face. My face? Lu Luo did not feel anything at all. She touched her cheek and found that it was a little prickly. Suddenly, she realized something and quickly took out a mirror to look at herself. Alt. With this photo, shrill screams instantly filled the ears of the genetic warriors. This is my punishment for you. Yili looked at Lu Luo indifferently. The dozens of genetic warriors looked at each other before running away. This was because they knew that if they continued to stay there would only be one end for them, death. As for Xia Zhu, her pupils could not help but contract rapidly. Ding! Congratulations to the host for becoming a 5th-tier chosen one. The system's voice suddenly appeared in Yili's mind. Yili's face was a little playful. No one else could become a 5th-tier chosen one as easily as him, could they? At this moment, Lu Luo had also fainted. For a woman, to become like this was simply worse than death. Yili's handsome face didn't change at all. He slowly walked away. Xia He looked at Yili's slightly thin back and pondered for a few seconds. Then, he mustered his courage and said to Yili, Senior, please wait a moment. Yili stopped in his tracks. He really didn't know why Xia He stopped him. He revealed his side profile and slowly said, "What is it?" "Senior, I know you're a supreme being. Last time, the zombies were only the first wave to attack West Bay City. They were controlled by the dark race. Please save West Bay City, Senior." When West Bay City was attacked by pure zombies, they already couldn't hold on, not to mention the dark race's attack. "Why? Are there still many zombies around this city?" Yili asked Xia He lightly. Chapter 687, Please Save West Bay City. Yili thought that if there were still many zombies, he could consider it, because his Apocalypse Legion had not been upgraded for a long time, except for the upgrade of Hongye not long ago. "Yes, Senior. I think there might be hundreds of thousands of zombies attacking West Bay City in the next wave," Xia He said to Yili. Hearing this, Yili's handsome face lit up. More than 100,000 zombies should be enough for him to synthesize. "All right." Yili agreed. Seeing that Yili agreed, Xia He's old face was instantly filled with joy and surprise. With Yili's help, West Bay City might not be destroyed by the zombies. At this moment, another group of genetic warriors ran over. Their realms were not low. Yili smiled to himself, thinking that they just didn't gonna stop, right? Dozens of genetic warriors stopped in front of Yili and bowed to him. "Senior." Dozens of genetic warriors shouted in unison. Yili did not expect these people to do this. This was interesting. "Old Lu, Old Ding, why are you here?" Xia He looked at the two old men in the lead in surprise. These two elders were influential figures in the city. Old Lu was the head of the Lu family, and Old Ding was the head of the Ding family. They were both 10th-tier evolved beings. Lu Feng was about to speak when he saw Lu Luo on the ground. "Luoer." Lu Feng could not help but exclaim. Yili smiled faintly and slowly raised his palm. A white spiritual light slowly appeared in his palm and headed towards Lu Luo's face. Lu Luo's originally unsightly face instantly recovered. This scene stunned all the genetic warriors present. "Woo-woo," Lu Luo woke up and started to cry. My face, my face." Lu Luo used to be very beautiful, but her face was ruined now. "You're the one who ruined my face." Lu Luo jumped up from the ground, looking like he wanted to fight Yili to the death. When the Lu family head, Lu Feng, saw this, he hurriedly blocked in front of her and berated Lu Luo. "Luoer, don't be rude to Senior." When Lu Luo saw that it was his grandfather who stopped her, she could not help but be angry. "Grandpa, he already disfigured my face, and now you're calling him Senior?" Lu Luo gritted her teeth and stared at Lu Feng. "Luoer, your face has recovered," Lu Feng said quickly. Lu Luo was stunned. A few seconds later, she took out the mirror. My face is really fine." Lu Luo was pleasantly surprised. Lu Feng let out a long breath. He thought that it was a good thing that he had stopped Luoer. Otherwise, things would have been bad. "Luoer, why aren't you apologizing to Senior?" Lu Luo was shocked. She could not believe that her grandfather would say such a thing. "Grandpa, she disfigured me just now. It's fine if you don't avenge me, but now you want me to apologize to him?" In Lu Luo's opinion, this was too unreasonable. "Don't be rude." He quickly glanced at Yili and was relieved to see that Yili's handsome face did not change at all. One won't apologize." Lu Luo said coldly. "You." Lu Feng was furious. Yili was really not interested in watching this. He said lightly to Lu Feng, "What is your purpose for coming here?" Lu Feng hurriedly looked at Yili and said, "Senior, would like to ask you to save West Bay City." Chapter 688, They were all Lord-level zombies. Lu Feng and the others came for the same purpose. They wanted Yili to save the West Bay City. Old Lu, Senior has already agreed, Xia he said to Lu Feng. Really? Lu Feng looked at Xia he in surprise. Xia he pursed his lips. Of course. Would I lie to you? The zombies haven't attacked your West Base city yet. Take me to a place with many zombies first. Yili looked at Lu Luo indifferently. He quite liked Lu Luo's temper. She was like a red pepper on a high mountain and a huge rock in the heart of the river. Me? Lu Luo didn't expect this. She looked at Yili in shock. Luoer, do whatever Senior asks you to do, Lu Feng said to Lu Luo. Of course, Lu Luo was unwilling. However, he heard the conversation between Yili and her grandfather just now. They said that they wanted Yili to save the West Base city. She did not understand how Yili could save the West Base city. Got it, Grandpa. Then, Lu Luo led Yili out of the West Base city. After walking for a few minutes, Lu Luo looked at Yili with disdain. Hey, why are you going to a place with so many zombies? If I tell you to lead the way, then lead the way. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Lu Luo didn't know how to answer Yili's question. You. Alright, don't regret it when the time comes. Lu Luo stomped her feet. Most genetic warriors would naturally stay away from places with many zombies. She really couldn't understand why Yili had this request. Lu Luo brought Yili to a city. Before entering the city, Yili could feel the number of zombies. This is Zone D, the place with the most zombies. Lu Luo stared at Yili. She really wanted to see how Yili would regret it later. Let's go in, Yili said slowly. After saying that, Yili slowly walked towards Zone D. Lu Luo was stunned. She stared at Yili's back and could only follow him. As soon as the two of them stepped into Zone D, countless zombies rushed over. These zombies were like people who had starved for 10 days and 10 nights but had not yet starved to death. They rushed over one after another. Roar! Roar! Yili released the Apocalypse Legion from the system space. Da, Hongye, Yutong, Bai Wawa, and Long Yu. Suddenly, the Apocalypse Legion rushed out. Lu Luo was shocked. She knew how the army appeared in the post-apocalyptic world, but before she realized what had happened, all the zombies that pounced on them were finished. How was that possible? Lu Luo seemed to have seen a scene that she would never see again, and she was greatly shocked. Hundreds of zombies fell to the ground just like that. She didn't even have time to see clearly. Yili's handsome face was as calm as water. He didn't choose to synthesize these zombies, but let these hundreds of zombies attract more zombies over. Master, it's been a long time since I met a powerful opponent. Ada said to Yili unhappily. Yili smiled faintly. There will be. Lu Luo looked at the Apocalypse Legion in a daze. Although they looked exactly like humans, her intuition told her that they were not humans. They're the Apocalypse Legion. They're all Lord-level zombies. What? Hearing this, Lu Luo instantly took 3 steps back. Lord-level zombies. As long as a zombie was above the 10th tier, it would be a master-level zombie. Master-level zombies' eyes would turn black again, let alone Lord-level zombies. One could only tell whether they were zombies or humans by their aura. Chapter 689. Lu Luo was shocked to the extreme. Lu Luo was just guessing, but she didn't expect it to be true. They were all Lord-level zombies. At this moment, no words could describe the shock in Lu Luo's heart. After all, these were Lord-level zombies. However, Lu Luo thought that Yili was lying to her because how could they all be Lord-level zombies? Yili naturally knew what Lu Luo was thinking, his handsome face indifferent. Roar! Roar! Suddenly, countless terrifying zombie roars entered Lu Luo's ears. Lu Luo's expression changed. She looked in front of her and then was scared out of her wits. This. Luo took a few steps back, unable to utter a complete sentence. Thousands of zombies pounced over. Yili looked at the thousands of zombies with disappointment. He had thought that there were many zombies in Zone D, but it seemed that he was wrong. Luo looked at the disappointed expression on Yili's face and couldn't help but be even more shocked. She would never have thought that Yili could actually look disappointed. What do we do? Luo looked at Yili. She didn't want to die. She really didn't want to die. However, facing such a huge number of zombies, she felt that there was no way out. Are you afraid? Yili looked at Luo indifferently. Luo really didn't understand why Yili asked this question. Of course, she was afraid. There were so many zombies, who wouldn't be afraid? Don't be afraid. With me here, these zombies are not a threat, Yili said slowly. Luo really did not know why there was such an arrogant person in this world. In the past, let alone meeting such an arrogant person, she had never even heard of such a person. Roar! Roar! Thousands of zombies rushed over. When the zombies were about 10 meters away from Yili, the Apocalypse Legion all shot out. Luo looked at the scene in front of her. She originally thought that it was the most shocking moment in her life, but now, it seemed that not only was she wrong, but she was so completely wrong. Because when the Mode army faced thousands of zombies, it was as easy as crushing dry weeds. The zombies kept falling. What shocked Luo even more was that the number of zombies was decreasing rapidly, but none of them died. Luo did not understand what was going on. She really did not understand. Moreover, many zombies started to attack other zombies. Her pupils began to constrict rapidly. She felt that her heart was about to jump out of her throat, and she even held her breath. At that moment, thousands of zombies suddenly became one. Well, Luo looked at the zombie in front of her in horror. She would never have thought that thousands of zombies would suddenly become one zombie. There was no change in Yili's expression. This zombie was obviously not qualified to synthesize with any zombie in the Apocalypse Legion. He put this zombie into the system space. Without thinking too much, Yili asked the Apocalypse Legion to continue luring the zombies. At this moment, Luo was petrified on the spot and could not recover for a long time. Yili looked at Luo indifferently and said slowly, I remember telling you never to be shocked because everything I do is enough to shock you for 3 days and 3 nights. Chapter 690, the 8th tier Vajra Demon Ape. Luo originally thought that Yili was courting death by asking her to bring him to a place with many zombies. But now, she only felt a burning pain on her face. If she didn't believe that the Apocalypse Legion was full of Lord-level zombies, she had to believe it now. Let's take a walk. Yili said lightly. As soon as he finished speaking, Yili slowly walked forward. Luo had no choice but to follow closely behind. Yili and Luo walked slowly on the streets of Zone D. From time to time, a few zombies would come over to give them warmth. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the streets of City D began to shake as if there was an earthquake. Yili looked straight ahead and saw a Vajra Demon Ape walking over. This Vajra Demon Ape was in the 8th tier and was 30 feet tall. Vajra Demon Ape. Luo's fair face was filled with shock. The Vajra Demon Ape was too terrifying for the genetic warriors in the West Base City. Yili sighed secretly. He had already told Luo not to be afraid, but why didn't Luo believe him? Humans? The Vajra Demon Ape was stunned. It clearly didn't expect to see humans in Zone D. Immediately, the Vajra Demon Ape started to sneer. Since 2 humans had appeared in Zone D, it meant that he could have a full meal. Humans, should I say that your luck is bad or good? The 8th tier Vajra Demon Ape looked at Yili and Luo playfully. Yili smiled calmly when he heard that. He looked at the Vajra demon ape indifferently and slowly said, "We're lucky, but you're not." The Vajra demon ape was stunned. He didn't expect Yili to say such a thing. "Humans, aren't you afraid of me?" In the Vajra demon ape's opinion, Yili and Lu Luo should be running away now while he could play like an eagle catching a chick. However, Yili and Lu Luo were not running away at all, which made him unable to understand no matter how he thought about it. "You're just an 8th tier dark race member. You're pitifully weak in front of me, Yili. Why should I be afraid of you?" Yili looked at the 8th tier Vajra demon ape mockingly. When the 8th tier Vajra demon ape heard this, it could not help but be furious. "Humans, I originally wanted to let you live a little longer, but no, it seems that there's no need." As soon as he finished speaking, the 8th tier Vajra demon ape rushed towards Yili and Lu Luomeng at a very fast speed. Of course, Lu Luo was scared. The Vajra demon ape tribe had killed countless genetic warriors in the West Base city. She was shocked. She couldn't help but look at Yili to see how he was going to deal with it. After all, Yili's Lord-level zombies weren't around. However, to Lu Luo's surprise, there was no change in Yili's expression. It was as if he did not see the 8th tier Vajra demon ape charging towards them. Lu Luo really didn't know what to say. How could Yili not be afraid? Could it be, was he really not afraid of death? Lu Luo didn't believe it. She knew that Yili must be a person who was extremely afraid of death. Just as she was letting her imagination run wild, the 8th tier Vajra demon ape was only a few steps away from them. She realized that there was still no change in Yili's expression. However, she saw Yili slowly raise a finger. Lu Luo felt that Yili must be crazy. Could it be that he wanted to use one finger to defeat the 8th tier Vajra demon ape? Swish! Before Lu Luo could notice what was going on, a wind-breaking voice entered her ears. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.